All right, so with completing the square, you have these 6 steps to do. First off, a must equal 1. A is the number that's with x squared. Then you move c, which is your constant term, you move it to the right side. So on the left side, you just have x squared and x. So your x's are on the left, your constant term's on the right. Then you add this b over 2 squared to both sides, and what that's going to do, it's going to create something that's easily factorable. It's going to actually create a perfect square trinomial. Then once you have that part, you're going to factor it because that's what you've created. Then you're going to square root and solve for x. So it sounds like a lot of steps, but if you follow them for every problem, you will get it correct. So let's start with our first problem here. First off, a must equal 1. So in front of the x squared, we have a 1x squared, right? So that part's done. Part 2, move c to the right side. Well, guess what? It's already there. So now I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to put some blanks in. We're going to add b over 2 squared to both sides. So I need to put a blank on the left side and on the right side. Now, what goes in that blank is b over 2 squared. So b is the term or the coefficient of x. So what's in front of our x here? Negative 12. So we're going to do negative 12 divided by 2 and then squared. Now, what's negative 12 divided by 2? Negative 6. And then square that and you get 36. So we're going to add 36 in both of these blanks. Now we're on to step 4, which is factor the left side. So this is a short trinomial. So we figure out what multiplies to be 36 and what adds to be 12. Well, what multiplies to be 36? 6 and 6, right? And what is 6 plus 6? 12. So this can factor to the same two numbers with something squared. So what goes right here is 6. Now think about how you get 6. The square root of 36 is, and what's half of 12? Whatever sign's in the middle is what you're going to use in here. So that left side actually factors to x minus 6 squared because it's a perfect square trinomial. Now on the right side, we just add these together. What's negative 5 plus 36? 31. Now we're on to step 5, which is say to do square root. So we're going to square root here and here. Now on the left side, it just drops the squared and the parentheses. And anytime you take a square root, don't forget to put plus or minus. Now look at the square root of 31. It's not a perfect square, but we want to try to break it down as much as possible. But 31, it doesn't break down, right? So just leave it as square root 31 because it is a prime number, so it won't break down. Now we're on to our last step, which is to solve for x. So what would you do to get x by itself? Plus 6. Can I add 6 to this square root? No, remember they both have to be under a square root in order to do any operation with them. So what we do with this, if I add my 6 over, I'm going to put it in front of my plus or minus. So I'm adding the 6 over, it's going to become a positive 6, then plus or minus square root 31. And that's as far as you can go with that problem. Does this look familiar? Y'all remember it from math too? A little bit? A little bit? All right, and then go ahead and write down problem number 2. X squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 25. Okay, let's go with our steps. The first step is a must equal 1. Does a equal 1? Yeah, it's 1x squared. All right, second step is move c to the right side. Well, what is c? 9. So we're going to minus 9. So we get x squared plus 6x. And go ahead and put plus blank because we're going to be adding something, right? And 25 minus 9 is 16. And then go ahead and put another plus blank. So we move C to the other side, and then we put our blanks in there. Now what goes in the blanks? B over 2 squared. So B is which number? And what's 6 divided by 2? And 3 squared is 9. So we are going to put 9 in this spot and in this spot. Now the next thing that we want to do is factor. The left side is always going to factor into something squared. And the first thing in that something is x. What comes next is either half the middle or square root of the last. So what's half of 6? What's square root of 9? So in here, plus 3. It's also this number right here. 6 divided by 2 is 3. See how that works? Now what's 16 plus 9? 25. So some of you may have noticed this from the beginning, and some of you may not have. This can't talk. This problem right here was actually a perfect square trinomial. It could have just went ahead and factored to there. But it's good to follow the steps. If you follow them every time, you get them right. So we have now factored. We're on to step 5, which says to take the square root. So x plus 3 equals, don't forget to put plus or minus. Good. And what's the square root of 25? 5. Now if we continue on like we did our last problem, we're going to get x by itself. What are we going to do to get x by itself? We're going to minus the 3 over. Now where did we put the 6 when we added the 6 over? In front of the plus or minus, right? We do the same thing here. So it's going to be minus 3 plus or minus 5. So whatever you add or subtract over has to go at the front. Now, these two are numbers that we can add and subtract together, can't we? So let's do that. And we can get two answers that make a little bit more sense. What's negative 3 plus 5? 2. Then what's negative 3 minus 5? And so that would be our two answers. So if you end up having things that you can add and subtract together, if they're just numbers, you go ahead and add and subtract those together. Does that make sense? Is this y'all remembering? Yeah? We did it a bunch. All right, question 3. Let's do that one. 2x squared plus 14x plus 8 equals 0. Okay, so first thing, a must equal 1. So what do we need to do? Divide everything by 2. Now, if you divide one thing by 2, you have to divide everything, even what's after the equal sign. So make sure you show that everything is being divided by 2. So we get x squared plus 7x plus 4 equals 0. Now, what's step 2? Minus the 4. You got to move c to the other side. And then go ahead and put in your plus blank. Now, step 3. B over 2 squared. Now, look at what I've written down. It's 7 over 2 squared, right? We want to make sure that we leave things as fractions. Now, you don't even need your calculator for this part. Y'all are looking at me like you don't believe me. But can 2 go into 7 or 7 go into 2? Can I reduce that? Nope. So when you square both parts. What's 7 squared? Good. And 2 squared is 4. So 49 over 4 is getting added to both sides. Now, If you do use your calculator for this, which is perfectly fine, just make sure that you have 7 over 2 in parentheses and then a squared on the outside, okay? You will get a decimal, but always make it a fraction. Because what do you notice about these two numbers, 49 and 4? They're perfect squares, which makes things a lot easier. Now, on this side, we want to factor it. It's going to be x. These are both positive, so we'll put a plus. 7 over 2 is going there. That's right. Half the middle, 7 over 2, or square root of the last. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 4 is 2, so 7 over 2. Now, for this side, use your calculator. Let's do that. Negative 4 plus 49 over 4. I get a decimal. I don't deal with decimals no more, though. So hit math, enter, 33 over 4. You're exactly right. Now it's time to square root. So x plus 7 over 2 equals plus or minus. Now when we get here, square root the top and square root the bottom. What about 33 though? You can't do it. It's a prime number. So we leave it as square root 33. And then that's over, what's the square root of 4? 2. Now what's the last thing that we need to do? So x would equal negative 7 over 2 because we changed the sign. Plus or minus square root 33 over 2. Can't add and subtract those together because one has a square root and one does not. And sometimes you might see things that have i's in them. When do we get an I in our answer? When there's a negative under the square root. All right, so we're going to stop here. I'm going to give you about 20 minutes to work, and then we're going to talk about quadratic formula. Okay? These problems make sense? Does anybody have any questions so far? All right. Not yet. Okay, so next part of today's lesson is all about quadratic formula. Now, in your quadratic formula, it has to be a quadratic trinomial that is equal to 0 before you start. So if you notice this part right here, you might want to underline this and put must equal 0. So before you start quadratic formula, it has to equal to 0. Then you can pick out your a, b, and c. A is the number in front of x squared, b is the number with x, and c is your constant term. Then when you use your quadratic formula, so you guys repeat after me. Opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Very good. So that's our quadratic formula. Now, if you do look at it online, they probably write it different than how I put it here. I like to separate my fractions with the plus or minus in the middle. Most textbooks actually put the plus or minus in the numerator and put it all over 1 2a instead of splitting it. I like to split it. If you remember from Math 2, the opposite of b over 2a was the x part of your vertex. And so what you add and subtract this fraction with the square root over 2a is the distance from the vertex to the x-intercepts. You might have noticed on last night's key features problem that a lot of the ones had the same decimals on it. It was like negative 1.19 and positive 4.19. It's because of that distance from the vertex to those x-intercepts is the same. But anyway, that's our formula. So let's do these two problems here. So number 1, it's already equal to 0. So we can pick out our a, b, and c. So a would be, b is, and c is. Very good. So let's put this into our quadratic formula. Don't forget to put x equals, and then you do opposite of b. So instead of negative 5, I'm going to put plus or minus square root. Then we do our b squared minus 4ac. When you do b squared, you put b in parentheses with a squared on the outside. Okay, make sure you use parentheses there. It will mess up your answer if you don't. So b squared minus 4 times a times c, and then all over 2a. So in our case, 2 times 3. Now, once you get all your numbers set up in the correct spot, you need to make sure that you simplify in the correct order. The first thing that you simplify is your denominators. So what's 2 times 3? The next thing that you simplify is what's underneath the square root. Don't type the square root in your calculator because not every square root is a perfect square, but just what's underneath. So when you go to your calculator, don't forget the b needs to be in parentheses. My calculator froze, so let me pull up a new calculator real quick. Dun-dun. All right, there we go. So it's b squared in parentheses minus 4ac. So it's 4 times 3 times negative 2. So underneath that square root, we have 49. Now, the good news is 49 is a perfect square. What's the square root of 49? 7. So we have 5 6 plus or minus 7 6. And then those are numbers that you can add and subtract, right? Because they are alike. We can add 5 6 and 7 6. So let's just go back to our calculator and we can just type those in. 5 6, my calculator's not working anymore. You guys can type it in though. In parentheses, 5 6 plus another parentheses, 7 6. So what's 5 6 plus 7 6? 2. And now subtract them. So what's 5 6 minus 7 6? Negative 1/3. Good. Make sure that you hit math enter on that one and reduce that fraction. So then you have your 2 answers there. All right, let's try our second problem. You guys write that one down. Yes, there are a lot of 6 7s in this next problem. Oh, I should have changed the numbers. Okay, first we have to do what on this problem? Yeah, make sure it equals 0. So let's add our 6 and 7. 6 and 7. 6, 7. To the other side. I know. I thought I might as well make somebody happy on Friday. For those of you watching this video in the future, 6 7 was a popular thing back in 2025. Do not go look it up because it's really just dumb. All right, so make sure it equals to 0. And now pick out your A, B, and C. Yes, when I'm a popular YouTuber and everybody has liked and subscribed to my channel. I got 72. All right, so let's, once we move everything to one side, then pick out your A, B, and C. So don't forget it's got to equal to 0. And now sing your song. Opposite of B. Plus or minus square root. B squared minus 4ac. All over 2a. Sometimes the hardest part is making sure you got your numbers in your right spot. But once you have everything put in, remember you simplify denominators first. So 2 times 2 is 4. And then you simplify what's under the square root. So type it in the calculator exactly how it looks. Make sure that you use parentheses, and then the squared is always outside the parentheses. So what's 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times 7? Negative 20. It should be negative 20. Now, some people want to divide this 20 and this 4 right here. Can you divide those? No, one's in a square root and one is outside, so you can't divide those numbers, okay? But that 20, we need to put it to the side and factor, break it down. Now remember, to do the shortcut, what's the biggest perfect square that goes into 20? But neither 2 and 10 will work, but they're not perfect squares. What's the biggest perfect square? 4 and 5. So if you want to, use the shortcut. Just trying to teach y'all a shortcut here. Because what's the square root of 4? And can I take the square root of 5? No. Okay. So we can keep this first fraction the same right now, negative 6/4, plus or minus. This part is over 4. We're just breaking down the square root. It's a negative 20. So the square root of negative 20 breaks down to, hold on, what about 4? 2. So it's 2i square root 5. So remember, think about the 20 as still being under a square root. So the square root of 4 is 2. Because it's a negative, you have to throw an I in there, in between, and the 5 stays. Now there's one last thing that you can do with this problem, which is to simplify any fractions. So negative 6/4 could actually reduce to negative 3/2. Now, your I and square root 5 have to just stay, but you can reduce 2/4. 2/4 reduces to 1/2. You can put a 1 up there at the top, or if you leave that 1 off and you don't have it, then that's fine too. So either put the 1 or you don't have to put the 1. But you reduce the fractions from there to make sure that you have that final answer. So it's negative 3/2 plus or minus I square root 5/2. All right, before I let you depart into your homework, I do want to talk about one thing on the calculator real quick. So let me turn mine off and turn it back on so that way it'll work right. When you are breaking down square roots, let's say that we wanted to break down the number 124. And so we put divided by x in our calculator, just like you're trying to find factors. But when you go to your table, you're probably going to find what you need within 10 to 15 numbers. Definitely no more than 20. But when you look at the factors, don't just look at the y values. You also want to look at your x values. What's the smallest perfect square we've got? 4. 4 is a perfect square, right? So if you use the x value, 4 and 31 will break down for 124. Can I take the square root of 31? Nope, but I can take the square root of 4. So the square root of 124, which I use in my calculator, would be 2 square root 31. So when you're breaking down square roots, look at the x and the y, not just the y. All right, let me pull up your homework, and that's